June 25th, 2009, Michael Jackson died at age 50. The world went into mourning, but almost immediately, the rumors started. Was he really sick? Was his skin actually bleached? How much plastic surgery did he really have? What was he hiding? For years, the tabloids had painted a picture of Michael Jackson as someone who mutilated himself, who was obsessed with changing his appearance, who was falling apart physically. Then the autopsy report was released, and what it revealed, it shut down decades of lies. It confirmed truths that Michael had been telling for years, but nobody believed. And it exposed just how cruel the media had been to a man who was suffering from real medical conditions. Today, we're going through Michael Jackson's actual autopsy report line by line, revealing what was really found, debunking the myths that destroyed his reputation, and exposing the truth they tried to hide from you. Let's get into it. Let's start with the biggest lie that followed Michael Jackson for decades, that he bleached his skin because he hated being black. The tabloids pushed this narrative relentlessly. They said Michael was ashamed of his race. They said he wanted to be white. They mocked him. They accused him of self-hatred. Michael repeatedly said he had a skin condition called vitiligo. He explained it in interviews. He talked about it publicly. But nobody believed him. They called him a liar. They said it was an excuse. They said he was just trying to cover up the fact that he was deliberately bleaching his skin. Then the autopsy happened. The coroner's report confirmed in black and white that Michael Jackson had vitiligo. Not mild vitiligo, extensive vitiligo, covering large portions of his body. Vitiligo is an autoimmune condition where the skin loses pigmentation in patches. It's not something you can fake. It's not something you choose. It's a medical condition that affects millions of people worldwide. The autopsy also revealed that Michael was using depigmentation creams, but not to turn himself white. He was using them to even out his skin tone because the vitiligo had created such stark patches that makeup could no longer cover them effectively. In other words, Michael wasn't bleaching his skin to become white. He was treating a legitimate medical condition that was destroying his appearance and making it impossible for him to look normal on camera. For over 20 years, Michael Jackson was called a liar, a race traitor, and a self-hating black man. The media destroyed his reputation over this, and the autopsy proved he was telling the truth the entire time. Think about that. Think about how much pain that must have caused him. To have a painful medical condition and then be mocked, ridiculed, and accused of racism because of it. The vitiligo revelation alone should have been front page news. An apology from every outlet that slandered him, a correction of the record, but that's not what happened. Most media outlets buried it. They mentioned it briefly and moved on. Because admitting they were wrong would mean admitting they tormented an innocent man for decades. Next, let's talk about plastic surgery. The tabloids love to show side-by-side photos of young Michael versus older Michael and claim he'd had dozens of surgeries. They said he was addicted to plastic surgery. They said his nose was falling off. They called him Wako Jacko and suggested he was mentally unstable. So what did the autopsy actually reveal? Michael had undergone rhinoplasty, a nose job. The report confirmed surgical alterations to his nose. No surprise there. Michael himself admitted to having 2 rhinoplasties in his autobiography. But here's what's important. The autopsy found no evidence of the extreme. Repeated surgeries the tabloids claimed. No collapsing nose, no prosthetics. No evidence of the dozens of surgeries the media had reported. The autopsy noted some scarring consistent with the limited number of procedures, but nothing close to what had been reported in the press. Now, did Michael have other cosmetic procedures? Possibly. The cleft in his chin may have been surgically created. He may have had some work done around his eyes. But the idea that he was constantly under the knife, that he was addicted to surgery, that his face was falling apart, the autopsy doesn't support that narrative. What the autopsy does reveal is that Michael had lupus, another autoimmune condition that can affect the skin and connective tissue. Lupus can cause changes in facial structure, skin texture, and overall appearance. So some of the changes in Michael's face over the years may not have been surgical at all. They may have been the result of a chronic illness that was slowly affecting his body. But the tabloids didn't care about the truth. They wanted a freak show. They wanted to paint Michael as someone who was destroying himself. And they did it without any regard for the medical reality of what he was going through. Now let's talk about what else the autopsy revealed about Michael's physical condition at the time of his death. Michael Jackson weighed 136 pounds at the time of his death. He was 5 feet 9 inches tall. For a man of that height, 136 pounds is severely underweight, dangerously underweight. The autopsy described him as thin to the point of emaciation. His ribs were visible. His body fat percentage was extremely low. Why was he so thin? The autopsy revealed that Michael's stomach contained partially digested pills but very little food. He wasn't eating properly. Whether that was due to stress, the medications he was taking, or another underlying issue, we don't know for certain. But what we do know is that Michael Jackson was not healthy. He was not ready to perform 50 high-energy concerts. His body was failing him. The autopsy also found evidence of arthritis in his lower spine and fingers. For a dancer, arthritis is devastating. It causes pain with every movement. It limits flexibility. It makes the kind of intense choreography Michael was famous for extremely difficult. He had osteoarthritis in his lumbar spine. He had inflammation in his lungs consistent with chronic respiratory issues. This was not a healthy 50-year-old man. This was someone whose body had been through decades of intense physical demands and was breaking down. And yet, he was preparing to do the This Is It tour. 50 shows that would have required him to sing and dance at the highest level for 2.5 hours a night. The autopsy makes it clear that Michael's body could not have sustained that. Even if he hadn't died on June 25th, the physical evidence suggests he would not have been able to complete that tour. His team knew this. His doctors knew this. AEG knew this. And they pushed forward anyway. Now let's talk about what actually killed Michael Jackson. The autopsy revealed acute propofol intoxication as the cause of death. Propofol is a powerful anesthetic used in surgical settings. It's not a sleep aid. It's not a painkiller. It's a drug that essentially puts you into a medically induced coma. Dr. Conrad Murray was administering propofol to Michael in his home to help him sleep. This is reckless. This is dangerous. This is something no responsible doctor would ever do. But the autopsy revealed something even more disturbing. Michael had multiple other drugs in his system at the time of his death. Lorazepam, midazolam, diazepam, lidocaine, ephedrine. This wasn't just propofol. This was a cocktail of sedatives, anti-anxiety medications, and other substances that, when combined, created a lethal situation. Murray claimed he was trying to wean Michael off propofol by giving him other medications. But what he actually did was create a dangerous combination that suppressed Michael's breathing and stopped his heart. The autopsy also revealed evidence of long-term prescription drug use, injection sites on his body, scarring consistent with repeated intravenous drug administration. Michael Jackson had been dependent on prescription medications for years. This wasn't a secret. People around him knew, doctors who treated him knew, family members knew, but nobody stopped it. Nobody intervened in a meaningful way. Instead, they enabled it. They found doctors who would prescribe what he wanted. They looked the other way, and ultimately, it killed him. The autopsy doesn't just tell us how Michael died. It tells us that his death was preventable, that the people who were supposed to protect him failed him completely. So why did they try to hide parts of this autopsy? Why was there so much legal maneuvering around what information would be released? Because the autopsy told a story that a lot of powerful people didn't want told. It told the story of a man with serious medical conditions who was being pushed beyond his physical limits by people who cared more about profit than his well-being. It told the story of a man who was being medicated into oblivion by doctors who should have known better. It told the story of a man who had been telling the truth about his vitiligo, his health issues, and his struggles, but was mocked and disbelieved by a cruel media that preferred sensational lies to boring facts. The Jackson family fought to keep parts of the autopsy private. They didn't want the details of Michael's drug use to become public. They didn't want the focus to be on his struggles rather than his legacy. AEG didn't want the autopsy to reveal how physically unfit Michael was to perform because it raised questions about whether they were negligent in pushing the tour forward. And the media? They didn't want to admit they'd been wrong about the vitiligo, wrong about the extent of the plastic surgery, and wrong about so many other things they reported as fact for years. So parts of the report were kept sealed. Details were omitted from public releases, and the full truth took years to come out. But eventually, it did come out. And what it revealed was a tragedy that could have been prevented. So what does the autopsy ultimately tell us about Michael Jackson? It tells us that he was a man dealing with serious, painful medical conditions that affected his appearance and his quality of life. It tells us that he was telling the truth when he explained his skin condition, but was vilified anyway. It tells us that his body was breaking down under the physical demands of his career and the long-term effects of prescription drug dependency. And it tells us that he was failed by the people around him who should have protected him. Michael Jackson's autopsy should have been a moment of reckoning for the media that tormented him. It should have been an apology, a correction, an admission of guilt. Instead, it was largely ignored. But for those who actually read the report, who look at the medical facts, the truth is clear. Michael Jackson was not a freak. He was not a liar. He was not someone who hated himself or mutilated his body out of vanity. He was a human being with real medical conditions, real struggles, and real pain. And he deserved better than what he got. So there it is. what Michael Jackson's autopsy actually revealed. The vitiligo that proved he was telling the truth. The limited plastic surgery that debunked decades of tabloid lies. The physical condition that showed how sick he really was. And the drugs that killed him. The truth was there all along, but they tried to hide it. They tried to bury it under sensational headlines and tabloid gossip. But the facts don't lie. And the autopsy report is proof that Michael Jackson deserved far more compassion and far less cruelty than the world gave him. What do you think? Should the media that lied about Michael for decades be held accountable? Let me know in the comments below. And if this video opened your eyes to the truth about Michael Jackson's health and the lies that were told about him, do me a huge favor, smash that like button and subscribe to King of Pop for more truth about the greatest entertainer who ever lived. Hit that notification bell so you never miss an upload. Thanks for watching. The truth matters. Michael's legacy matters. And we'll never stop fighting to protect both. Peace.